The rain was relentless that evening, falling in heavy sheets that blurred the streets into rivers of silver. Emily tightened her coat around her shoulders as she hurried home, her shoes splashing through shallow puddles. The city was quieter than usual. People hid indoors when the sky opened like this. But in that silence, she heard something faint, a whimper. Emily stopped. At first, she thought the sound was part of the storm, but then it came again, soft, desperate, trembling. She turned her head and spotted a small figure crouched against the corner of an alley. A dog. Its fur was soaked, clinging to its thin frame. It shivered violently, eyes wide with fear, as cars splashed by on the main road. The sight pierced Emily's chest. Without thinking, she stepped closer, crouching slowly so as not to scare it away. "Hey there," she whispered, her voice gentle under the roar of the rain. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." The dog's ears twitched. For a moment, it looked ready to bolt, but when Emily reached into her bag and pulled out half a sandwich she hadn't eaten, the animal hesitated, sniffing the air. She placed the food on the ground and backed away slightly. Within seconds, the dog crept forward, paws trembling, and devoured the offering hungrily. Emily smiled softly. "Poor thing. How long have you been out here alone?" As the dog chewed, she noticed something around its neck, a collar, worn and muddy, but still intact. She reached out slowly, and the dog allowed her to touch it. Her fingers brushed against a small metal tag, scratched and faded, but with an address still barely visible. Her heart skipped. Someone owned this dog. Someone had written down where it belonged. She looked at the trembling creature, then back at the address. Should I take it there? The idea made her uneasy. The house could be abandoned, the owner careless. But the dog pressed against her leg as if pleading, eyes shining with an odd determination. Emily exhaled and nodded. "Okay, little one, let's go find your home." She wrapped the dog gently in her coat, carrying it close as she followed the address carved into the metal. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the streets quieter as she moved away from the familiar parts of the city. The deeper she walked, the more the world seemed to change. Streetlights grew sparse, houses older, gardens overgrown. Finally, she stopped in front of a house that seemed forgotten by time. The paint was peeling, windows dark, the gate half broken. Emily frowned. This is it? The dog wriggled free from her arms and padded straight to the gate, pawing at it, whining softly. Emily hesitated. Something about the house unsettled me. It wasn't just the decay, it was the silence, heavy and unnatural, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She glanced back at the street, then at the dog, who looked at her with desperate eyes. "You really want me to go in there, don't you?" she whispered. The dog barked once, sharp, urgent. Emily's pulse quickened. She pushed the gate open, its rusty hinges screeching into the night. Step by step, she followed the dog up the cracked path, each footfall echoing louder than it should. At the front door, the dog stopped and scratched, whining again. Emily raised her hand to knock, but paused. A shiver ran down her spine. This house, it didn't feel like any normal home. And yet, something told her that behind this door lay the reason fate had led her here tonight. Emily's knuckles hovered above the worn wooden door. For a long moment, she hesitated, listening to the rain dripping from the roof, the quiet whine of the dog at her feet. Her chest tightened. Something about this place felt wrong, but curiosity and the dog's urgency pushed her forward. She knocked, the hollow sound echoing through the silent house. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Just when she thought no one would answer, the sound of shuffling footsteps reached her ears. Slow, dragging, hesitant.
The door creaked open. A woman stood there. Her face was pale, framed by disheveled hair streaked with gray. Her eyes, sunken, tired, yet startlingly familiar, locked onto Emily's. She wore an oversized sweater that hung from her thin frame, and her hands trembled as they clutched the edge of the door. For a heartbeat, Emily couldn't move, then recognition struck her like lightning. "Aunt Margaret?" Her voice cracked on the name she hadn't spoken in years. The woman's lips parted, her breath shaky. Her eyes glistened with tears. "Emily," she whispered, the word trembling like it had been buried for decades. Emily's throat tightened. Memories flooded back, her aunt's laughter, the way she used to braid Emily's hair when she was a child, the day she suddenly disappeared without a trace. For years, the family had searched, posted photos, begged for answers. Eventually, whispers turned into silence, and silence into grief. Everyone assumed she was gone forever. But here she was, alive. The dog wagged its tail and pressed against the woman's leg, whining softly. Margaret bent down, stroking its fur with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. "You found him. You followed him here." Emily's pulse raced. "We thought you were dead. All these years, where have you been? Why didn't you come back?" Margaret's eyes darted to the shadows inside the house, her body tensing. She stepped forward quickly, grabbing Emily's wrist with surprising strength. "Not here. Not now. Please, come in, but be quiet." Confusion swirled inside Emily, but she obeyed, stepping into the dimly lit room. The air was heavy with the smell of damp wood and something metallic, something suffocating. The curtains were drawn, leaving only a single lamp casting weak light over the cracked wallpaper. Margaret closed the door softly, pressing her back against it, as if to keep something or someone out. Her breathing was uneven, her hands trembling as they brushed her hair back from her face. "I wanted to come back," she whispered, her voice low, broken. "Every single day. But he wouldn't let me." "Who?" Margaret's eyes filled with terror, her lips quivering. "The man I trusted. The man who said he loved me. He took me here, locked me away. Years of silence, years of fear. He wanted to erase my life. He kept me away from everyone, even from you." Emily's stomach dropped. She staggered back, her heart pounding. "You mean he kidnapped you? He forced you to stay?" Margaret nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was his prisoner, and when I tried to reach out, he punished me. I had no way out." Emily felt the room tilt around her. Rage boiled beneath her skin, her fists clenching. The thought of her aunt, her kind, joyful aunt, trapped in this rotting house for years while everyone believed she had vanished, it was unbearable. "Where is he now?" Emily asked sharply, her voice steadier than she felt. Margaret's eyes flickered toward the window, where the faint sound of distant machinery hummed. "At work. He always comes back late, but he could return any time." The dog whimpered again, pressing closer to Emily's leg as if urging her to act. Emily took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She looked at her aunt, at the years of suffering etched to her face, and felt something inside her ignite. "You're not staying here another night," she said firmly. "I don't care who he is. I'm taking you home." Margaret's eyes widened with both fear and hope, her hands trembling as they gripped Emily's. "If you try, he'll come after us. He won't let me go so easily." Emily squeezed her aunt's hands tighter, her jaw set. "Then let him try." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with both dread and determination. Emily knew one thing with absolute certainty. The storm that brought her here wasn't just weather. It was fate. And fate had chosen her to end this nightmare.
The dim light of the single lamp cast long, uneasy shadows across the room. Emily's eyes scanned the cracked wallpaper, the mildew creaking up the corners, the locks on the inside of doors that didn't make sense. Everything about the house felt wrong. Less like a home, more like a cage. Margaret's shoulders curled inward as if she were trying to make herself smaller. She moved cautiously, almost afraid to step too far from the door, her eyes flicking constantly toward the window. Emily could see the years of fear etched into her every gesture. "Show me," Emily whispered. "Where did he keep you?" Margaret hesitated, her lips trembling. Then she nodded, motioning for Emily to follow. They walked through a narrow hallway, the wooden floor creaking under their weight. The dog padded quietly beside them as if sensing the gravity of what was about to be revealed. Margaret stopped in front of a door at the end of the corridor. Her hand hovered over the knob, shaking. Finally, she opened it. The air inside was stale, suffocating. The room was small, windowless, with peeling paint and a single mattress pushed against the wall. A metal chain lay on the floor, its rust stains seared into the wood beneath it. Emily's stomach twisted. "He locked you in here?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "For years. If I disobeyed, if I begged too loudly, this is where he put me. Days, sometimes weeks. I thought I'd go mad." Her voice cracked. "I counted scratches on the wall to know the days. Look!" Emily stepped closer and saw them. Hundreds of lines carved into the plaster, overlapping, endless. A lifetime of suffering etched into stone. She pressed a hand to her mouth, bile rising in her throat. Rage flared in her chest, sharp and blinding. "This isn't just cruelty. This is hell." Margaret leaned against the doorframe, her body trembling. "I tried so many times to run, but he always found me, and when he didn't lock me here, he locked my mind with fear. I thought I'd never leave." Emily turned to her, her voice firm. "You're leaving, tonight. No more chains, no more silence." Margaret shook her head desperately. "He'll come back. He always comes back. You don't understand how dangerous he is. If he finds us—" Emily cut her off, her voice like steel. "Then let him find me. I won't let him hurt you again." The dog whined, circling Margaret's legs protectively, as if to reinforce Emily's words. Emily took a step deeper into the room, her hand brushing against the chain. It was heavier than she expected, the cold metal biting into her palm. She imagined Margaret trapped there, crying in the dark, waiting for footsteps that only brought pain. The image carved itself into her soul. When she let the chain drop, it clattered against the floor, the sound echoing through the house like a declaration. The prison had been exposed. Emily turned back to Margaret, fire blazing in her eyes. "This ends tonight. He doesn't control you anymore." Margaret's lip quivered, hope and fear warring inside her. She reached for Emily's hand, gripping it tightly. "I want to believe you. I do. But I've been afraid for so long." Emily squeezed her aunt's hand in return. "Then let me carry the fear. You just hold on to me." The air in the house felt heavier now, every creak of the walls like a warning. Somewhere in the distance, Emily thought she heard the faint rumble of an engine. Her pulse quickened. He could be on his way back. And Emily knew there was no turning back. She had to find a way to get her aunt out before it was too late.
The rumble of an engine grew louder outside, steady and menacing, like the growl of a predator circling its prey. Emily froze, her heart thudding so hard she thought the walls might hear it. Margaret's face drained of color. "He's back," she whispered, her voice shaking. Her body pressed against the wall as if she could melt into it, disappear. Emily gripped her aunt's trembling hands. "Listen to me. We're not prisoners anymore. Not tonight. You're walking out of here with me." The dog growled softly, ears perked toward the sound of the car pulling into the gravel driveway. Its body stiffened, tail rigid, as if ready to defend them. Margaret shook her head desperately. "You don't know what he'll do. He doesn't let go, Emily. He'll destroy anyone who stands in his way." Emily swallowed hard, fear gnawing at her ribs, but she forced her voice to stay calm. "Then let him try. I won't let him hurt you again." The front door rattled as a key turned in the lock. Margaret whimpered, covering her mouth with her hand. Emily scanned the room, her mind racing. She spotted the back door, half hidden behind a curtain in the kitchen, their only chance. "Come on," Emily urged, tugging Margaret's arm. "We have to move now." Margaret resisted, her legs frozen with terror. "He'll hear us. He always hears everything." The front door creaked open. Heavy boots stomped against the floorboards. A man's voice, deep and rough, carried through the house. "Margaret, where are you?" The sound sliced through the air like a blade. Margaret shook violently, tears streaming down her face. Emily wrapped an arm around her waist, half pulling her toward the kitchen. "Trust me," she hissed. "Just once, trust me." The man's footsteps grew closer. The weight of each step was deliberate, confident, the stride of someone who believed he owned everything in his sight. Emily reached the back door, fumbling with the rusted latch. Her hands shook, the metal groaning as she forced it open. The dog squeezed past her legs, darting outside into the wet night. "Margaret!" He barked again, his voice sharper, angrier. "Answer me!" Margaret flinched, her knees buckling. Emily tightened her grip. "Stay with me, please. One more step." The floor creaked behind them. He was closer. Emily shoved the door open and pulled her aunt into the night air. The cold rain slapped her face, but it felt like freedom. She dragged Margaret down the narrow path, the mud sucking at their shoes. The dog ran ahead, barking furiously, guiding them toward the gate. Then came the roar. "Stop!" His voice exploded from the doorway. Emily didn't dare look back. She pushed Margaret forward. Every ounce of strength poured into those desperate steps. The gate loomed ahead. If they could just reach the street, lights, neighbors, witnesses, they might have a chance. But heavy footsteps thundered behind them, the sound of rage, of years of control slipping away. Margaret sobbed, stumbling, but Emily hauled her up. "You're not going back. Not now, not ever." The gate screeched as Emily shoved it open. She pushed Margaret through, then spun around for a split second. The man's silhouette filled the doorway, broad shoulders, fists clenched, eyes blazing even from the distance. And for the first time, Emily saw him not as a shadow, but as a monster made flesh. The rain poured harder, thunder cracking overhead. Emily grabbed her aunt's hand tighter. "Run!" Together they sprinted into the storm, leaving behind the house that had been a prison for years. But Emily knew it wasn't over. Not yet. He would come after them. And when he did, she would be ready.
The night was alive with the storm. Rain pelting the streets, thunder rolling through the sky like a drumbeat of fate. Emily's breath came fast and shallow as she dragged Margaret down the slick pavement, their shoes splashing through puddles. The dog barked ahead, urging them forward, its cries echoing through the dark neighborhood. Behind them, heavy footsteps pounded the ground. The man was faster than Emily expected, fueled by rage. His voice bellowed into the storm, "You can't take her! She's mine!" Margaret scumbled, nearly falling, but Emily caught her. "Keep moving!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the rain. "Don't look back!" They rounded a corner, the dim glow of a street lamp flickering above. Emily's chest tightened. This wasn't far enough. She needed distance, a place to hide, a way to stop him from chasing them forever. But Margaret's legs were weak, years of captivity draining her strength. She couldn't run much longer. The dog suddenly darted down a narrow alley, barking insistently. Emily followed, pulling Margaret along. The walls closed in around them, the rainwater streaming down cracked bricks. At the far end, a chain-link fence loomed, too high for Margaret to climb. Emily spun around, her heart pounding. They were trapped. The man's silhouette filled the alley entrance seconds later. His broad frame blocked the light, his eyes glowing with fury. His voice was low, guttural. "You think you can steal her from me after all these years?"
Emily positioned herself in front of Margaret, her arms spread wide. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "She was never yours. You don't own her. Not anymore." He took a step closer, fists clenched. "She belongs here, with me. She knows what happens if she leaves." His gaze shifted to Margaret, a sick smile curling his lips. "Don't you, Margaret?" Margaret whimpered, shrinking back, her body trembling. Emily felt rage explode inside her. Enough. She wasn't going to let him break her aunt again. "Stay behind me," Emily whispered, then stepped forward, her eyes locked on the man. He laughed darkly. "What are you gonna do, little girl? You can't stop me." Emily's pulse raced, but her voice grew steady, each word sharp as steel. "No, but the world can. You've hidden her for years, but not anymore. If you touch her again, the whole street will hear, the whole city will know. Your prison is over." For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. His confidence cracked, just slightly. The dog barked ferociously, baring its teeth. Emily seized the moment, scooping up a loose brick from the ground. She raised it high, her knuckles white. "Take one more step," she warned, her voice fierce, "and you'll regret it." The man froze, rain dripping from his hair, his chest heaving. For years he had thrived on fear, on Margaret's silence. But now he saw something different. Emily's fire, unbroken and unyielding. Margaret, emboldened by Emily's stance, finally found her voice. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she cried out, her voice shaking but strong. "I'm done being your prisoner." The words shattered the last thread of his control. He snarled, stepping back, his fury boiling into frustration. "This isn't over. You'll regret crossing me." Emily held the brick firm, her eyes locked on his. "No, the only one who'll regret anything is you." The man glared at them one final time before storming out of the alley, his footsteps fading into the rain. Emily lowered the brick slowly, her body trembling. She turned to Margaret, who was crying freely now, her face a mix of terror and relief. Emily pulled her into a fierce embrace, holding her as tightly as she could. "You're safe now, I promise." But deep inside, she knew it wasn't finished. He would try again. And next time, she would need more than courage to protect her aunt. She would need help.
The storm began to ease, the thunder rolling farther into the distance, leaving behind only the steady patter of rain. Emily still held the brick in her hand, her knuckles stiff, her breath ragged. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The man who had stolen her aunt's life had finally stepped back. For the first time, Margaret wasn't trembling in submission. She was trembling in hope. Emily dropped the brick with a clatter. The sound was final, like the closing of a chapter. She looked at Margaret and brushed the wet strands of hair from her face. "It's over," she whispered. "He can't keep you here anymore." Margaret shook her head, still clutching Emily's arm. "No, he'll come back. He always comes back." Emily cupped her aunt's face gently, forcing her to meet her eyes. "Not this time. We're not alone anymore. You have me, and soon the world will know what he's done." The dog barked softly, circling their feet, as if to remind them that it had been the one to lead Emily here. It wagged its tail, shaking off the rain, and pressed against Margaret's leg. She smiled faintly, a fragile smile, but real. "He's the one who gave me hope," she murmured, "even when I thought no one would ever find me." Emily squeezed her hand. "And now he's led me to you. Let's get out of here before he changes his mind." They hurried out of the alley, stepping back into the glow of the street lamps. Emily pulled her phone from her pocket, her fingers shaking as she dialed. She called the police, her voice firm and unwavering as she explained everything. The years of captivity, the abuse, the threats. The dispatcher's tone turned sharp and urgent, promising officers were already on their way. Minutes later, the sound of sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flashed against the wet pavement as a patrol car skidded to a stop. Two officers rushed toward them, their expressions grim as Emily told them what had happened. Margaret clung to Emily's arm as the officers moved past them, heading toward the direction of the man's house.
For the first time in years, she wasn't being dragged back inside, she was being led away, toward freedom. One officer wrapped a blanket around her trembling shoulders, speaking gently. "You're safe now. He won't touch you again." Margaret broke into tears, burying her face against Emily's shoulder. Emily held her tight, feeling her aunt's sobs shake through her body. Relief coursed through her like fire and water all at once, burning away the rage, washing away the fear. Hours later, when the chaos had settled, Emily and Margaret sat together in a quiet room at the station. The dog lay curled at their feet, finally asleep, its chest rising and falling peacefully. Margaret leaned against her niece, her voice fragile but steady. "I thought my life was over. I thought no one would ever remember me." Emily wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You were never forgotten, and you'll never be alone again." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the storm outside finally breaking into calm. Margaret closed her eyes, breathing deeply, as though filling her lungs with freedom for the first time in decades. Emily looked down at the sleeping dog and smiled. "It started with you," she whispered. "You saved us both." And in that moment, Emily knew the truth. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness, stopping for a stray dog in the rain, could open the door to a miracle, to justice, and to the reunion of a broken family. The nightmare was over. Margaret was free.